Hello again, welcome back. Class 114, are you ready? Yes, sir. By the way, Class 114 falls between Class 113 and 115. All right. And yesterday was an interesting class, especially for me, because she says she's sure. This expression, me costó fonéticamente decir. I've never said it in my life. Ella dice que está segura. She says she's sure. It's difficult to say. Try it. And if you're a native, I know that some native speakers watch this show. Try to say, she says she's sure, making the contraction. She is. She's. All right, we're practicing with the past tense of the verb to be. Richard, yes. Are you happy? Yes, I am. Were you happy yesterday? Yes, I was. Were you happy 10 years ago? Yes, I was. Will you be happy tomorrow? Yes, I will. Probably. Yes, I will. All right. Were Philip and Nancy Johnson in Kansas last year? No, they weren't. Were they in Nebraska? Yes, they were. Were they married 10 years ago? Philip and Nancy Johnson? Yes, they were. Yes, they were. Was Natasha Zarakovich in Moscow yesterday? Yes, she was. Were you in Moscow? Me? No, I wasn't. Were you? Were you or weren't you? Were you in Moscow yesterday? You weren't. All right. Were the Marx Brothers French? Who? The Marx Brothers. I don't understand, Richard. Los hermanos Marx. Yes, the Marx Brothers. Were they French? No, they weren't. Were they Spanish? No, they weren't. What nationality were they? They were American. Were they actors? Yes, 3 of them were. Well, how many brothers were there? There were 5. Which one was famous? Well, all of them. 3 of them especially were famous. Groucho, Harpo, and Chico. And the others? Zeppo wasn't very famous, and I don't remember the name of the 5th. I can't remember. But there were 3. 3 were very, very famous. Groucho, Harpo, and Chico. Chico played the piano. Harpo, Harpo the harp, and Groucho the cigar. He played the cigar. All right. And Groucho was the leader. Harpo wasn't the leader, and Chico wasn't the leader. Groucho was the leader. And the Marx Brothers, were they from California? No, they weren't. Were they from Alaska? No, they weren't. Were they from Georgia? No, they weren't. Were they from North Carolina? No, they weren't. Well, where were they from? They were from New York City, from New York. Yes. I think they were from Brooklyn or the Bronx. But they were from New York City. And were they popular? Excuse me? Were they popular? Popular? No, popu. ¿Cómo? Popu. Pew, pew, pew. Popular. Her. Ler. Popular. 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 Population. Were they popular? Who? The Marx Brothers. Yes, they were. Were the Brothers Grimm popular? You lost me. Who? The Brothers Grimm. Curioso, se dice los hermanos Marx, we say the Marx Brothers. Pero los hermanos Grimm, los alemanes, con los cuentos, we say the Brothers Grimm. Al revés. Maybe because they're German. Well, what nationality were the Brothers Grimm? They were German. Were they important in the 18th century? No, they weren't. Well, when were they important? They were important in the 19th century and today. Yes, but were they musicians? No, they weren't. Well, what were they? Well, they were collectors of stories from the people. Yes, Blancanieves, Cenicienta, all of these stories are the Brothers Grimm. All right, okay, born. I was born. I was born in Houston, Texas. I wasn't born in Madrid. Born. En inglés no existe el verbo nacer. Existe, usamos la expresión ser dado a luz o incluso, bueno, ser parido. Porque el verbo parir is to bear. B-E-A-R, bear. Como oso, bear. A bear. Is there a bear in this room? No, there isn't a bear. Is Yogi Bear French? No, he's not. What nationality is Yogi Bear? He's American. Where's he from? He's from Jellystone Park, Yellowstone Park. Bear. Pero el verbo to bear is soportar, aguantar. No, aguanto esta clase. I can't bear. I can't bear. Pero bear también es dar a luz o parir. Tiene un tratamiento igual que llevar puesto. Wear, wore, worn, bear, bore, born. So, yo fui parido, literalmente. Yo fui dado a luz. I was born. You were born. I was born. He was born. She was born. They were born. We were born. We were born. Where were you born? Where were you? Where were? Where were? Where were? Cuesta, que sí. Es un sonido oscuro para un hispanohablante. Where were you born? Where were you born? Where were you born? The First World War? Were you born during the First World War? Very. Where were you born? You were born in Spain. Ask me. Richard, yes. Where were you born? I was born in the U.S. Ask me where I was born in the U.S. Richard, where were you born? Que suene la N al final de born. Where were you born in the U.S.? I was born in Houston, Texas. How old was your sister when you were born? My sister was 3 when I was born. How old was your mother when you were born? My mother was 29 when I was born. Almost 30, but not quite. Almost 30, but not quite. Not quite means, pero casi casi. Not quite. How old was your father when you were born? My father was 28 when I was born. He's younger. He was younger than my mother. And how old were you when your son was born? My son? Let's see. I was 32 when my son was born. How old were you, Richard, when your daughter was born? I was 28 when my daughter was born. How old were you when Nancy Johnson was born? Nancy Johnson? Well, let's see. A ver, let's see. Nancy Johnson is 38. So she was born in 1982. So I was 30 years old when she was born. Wow, I'm 30 years older than you, Nancy. Wow. Yes. How old were you when your third child was born? I don't have a third child. Well, how old were you when you came to Spain? The first time I was 20. I was 20. How old was Napoleon when you were born, Richard? No, Napoleon died many years before. All right. How old was your father when you were in primary school? My father was in his 30s when I was in primary school. My father was in his 30s when I was in primary school. And how old was your father when you were in secondary school? In secondary school, let's see, my father was in his, secondary school was from 1963, 4. So my father was in his 40s My father was in his 40s when I was in secondary school. How old was your father when you were in the university, when you were at college or at the university? The British say at uni, university, uni, at uni. The Americans say at college. Let's see, when I was at college, when I was at uni, at the university, my father was in his 50s. Yes. How old was your mother in the year 2000? At the turn of the century. At the turn of the century. Yes. How old was your mother at the turn of the century? Let's see. At the turn of the century, my mother was 82. No, my mother was 78. My mother was 78 at the turn of the century. How old was your father in the year 2000 at the turn of the century? My father was 76. 76 trombones led the big parade. 76 trombones. Yeah, that's a song. Eh? All right. So, how long ago? Hace cuánto? How long ago were you in Egypt? I was in Egypt about 12 years ago. The last time and the only time. How long ago were you in Russia? I was in Russia. How long ago? I was in Russia in 1972, 73, in Christmas and New Year's. Yes, in 1972, 73. So I was in Russia 48 years ago. Wow, a long time. I was in Russia 48 years ago. Yeah, how long ago was the Battle of Normandy, D-Day? D-Day, the invasion of Normandy. How long ago was that? Well, it was in 1944. Wow, you're asking me to do mathematical equations. So it was, how long ago was that? That was, ¿cuánto tiempo hace? ¿Qué fue eso? Eso fue hace. That was, how long ago was that? Well, let's see, that was 76 years ago. Yes, that was 76 years ago. D-Day, the invasion of Normandy. Okay. How long ago was the assassination of John Kennedy? Well, the assassination, por cierto, asesinar por motivos políticos, decimos assassinate, no murder or kill. Murder is homicidio, eh? Asesinato por homicidio. But if it's for political reasons, we say to assassinate, and we say assassination. The Kennedy assassination was in 1963. And that was how long ago? That was 50 or 60 years ago? No, that wasn't 60 years ago. That was 57 years ago. That was 56. I'm speaking to you in May, not in November. That was in November 1963. So that was almost 57 years ago, but not quite. Almost. It was 56 and a half years ago. How long ago was the turn of the century? The turn of which century? The turn of the current century, right now. Current. Sí, actual, el siglo actual. The current escrito. The current century was 20 years ago. Puh, como vuela el tiempo. Time flies. El tiempo vuela. Time flies. That was 20 years ago. Richard, yes. Where was Philip Johnson born? He was born in Lincoln, Nebraska. Where was Abraham Lincoln born? He was born in Kentucky. Okay, where was Paco de Lucia born? I think he was born in Algeciras, I think. All right. And where was Miguel de Cervantes born? He was born in Alcalá de Henares. Where was Christopher Columbus born? There are 4 different versions. Some say, algunos afirman, some people say he was born in Genoa. Some people say he was born in Pontevedra. Some people say he was born in Portugal. And finally, some people say he was born in Mallorca, in the island of Mallorca. Which is correct? I don't know. Probably Genoa or Pontevedra. Yes, but I'm not sure. I don't know. It's a mystery. All right, where was Charles I born? Which Charles I? I must do Carlos I. Charles I of Spain. He was born in Ghent, in Flanders, in the Low Countries, Países Bajos. Where was Philip II born? I don't know. Well, he was born in Spain. But I think, I don't know. If he was born in Valladolid, I don't know where he was born in Spain. I don't know where. Where was Luis de Góngora born? That's a good one. He was a poet. He was a poet. Yes, a Baroque poet. He was born in, I think he was born in Córdoba, in the south of Spain, in Andalusia. Where was Francisco Ayala born? Francisco Ayala, the writer. Yes. Oh, he was born in Granada. Oh, yes. And he lived 103 years. He died 2 or 3 years ago. He was born in 1906. Yeah, Francisco Ayala was born in 1906, and he died in 2009. So he was alive for 103 years. And he was a very good writer. He was from Granada. And where was Ángel Ganivet from? Ángel Ganivet? Who's he? Well, he was a member of the generation of 1898. Oh, where was he born? I don't know. Where was, what's his name? His name is Ángel Ganivet. I don't know, where was Ángel Ganivet born? He was born in Granada. Okay. Like Francisco Ayala. Okay. All right. And where was Miguel Servet born? Who's he? Miguel Servet? Who's he? He was an important philosopher, religious figure in the 16th century. In the siglo XVI, okay. In the 16th century. 16th century. Where was he born? He was born in Aragon. In Aragon, yeah. But was he born in Zaragoza? I'm not sure. Was he born in Huesca? I'm not sure. Was he born in Jaca? Maybe. Was he born in Albarracin? I don't know. But he was born in Aragon. All right. Was he an important person in Spain? Yes and no. All right. Was he a friend of Philip II? I don't think so. No, he wasn't. Were you here in the 16th century? Me? No, I wasn't. Were you here in the 17th century? No, I'm not immortal. I wasn't here in the 17th century either. Were you here 30 years ago? Yes, I was. Were you here 40 years ago? Here in Spain? Yes, I was. Yes, I was. Were you here 50 years ago? No, I wasn't. Where were you 50 years ago? Exactly? The month of May, 50 years ago, 1970? I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. How big is Tulsa? How big? Yeah, how big is it? How big is it? Tulsa. Yes, how big is Tulsa, Oklahoma? It's not very big. Well, be more specific. Be more precise. What's the what's the population of Tulsa? Now or 50 years ago? Now. I don't know. Well, give me a general idea. The population is probably 350,000 people. Similar to Valladolid. Yes, perhaps. And what was the population 50 years ago? 50 years ago, the population was around 250,000. Okay, 250,000. And where were you 60 years ago? Let's see, exactly in May 1960, I was in Houston, Texas. How old were you 60 years ago? I was 8. In May 1960, I was 8. All right. And were you happy? Was I happy? In 1960, yes, I was. Were you a good student? Yeah, I was okay. I was a good student. Were you good in sports? Yes, always. I was very good in sports. What sports were you good at? In 1960, Oh, in 1960, I was good at American football. I was good at baseball. And I was good at running, sprinting. I was a sprinter. When you were 8 years old? When I was 8 years old, yeah. Golf, baseball, no. Golf when I was 9. 1 year later in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But in Houston, no. All right. I was good at baseball. I was good in American football for little children. And I was good at running. I was very fast. All right. I did. Where were you 20 years ago? I was here. Where were you at the turn of the century? What, on December 31st, 1999? Yes, where were you exactly 20 years ago at the turn of the century? I think I was here. I don't remember. I was here. Waiting for the celebration of the new millennium. Now, this pencil, what about it? Okay, was it in the cup in the last class? Yes, it was. Is it in the cup now? No, it's not in the cup anymore. Ya no está en la taza. It's not in the cup anymore. Well, where is it now? It's in my left hand. How long ago was it in the cup? Well, it was in the cup only about 1 minute ago. But it's not in the cup anymore. All right, so, ago. How long ago? ¿Hace cuánto? ¿Hace cuánto? ¿O hace cuánto tiempo? All right. How long ago was Adolfo Suárez the Prime Minister of Spain? He was the Prime Minister of Spain 44 years ago. Yes, in 1976, he was named Prime Minister by the King in July 1976. And how long was he the Prime Minister? How long? He was the Prime Minister for 5 years, from 1976 to 1981. How long was Calvo Sotelo the Prime Minister? He was the Prime Minister for 1 year, from 1981 to 1982. And who was the Prime Minister after him, after Calvo Sotelo? Felipe González was the Prime Minister. How long was he the Prime Minister? How long? He was the Prime Minister for 14 years, from 1982 to 1996. And who was the Prime Minister after him? After him, José María Aznar was the Prime Minister after Felipe González. And how long was he the Prime Minister? He was the Prime Minister for 8 years. Yes. From 1996 to 2004. And who was the Prime Minister after him? After him, the Prime Minister was José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. And how long was he the Prime Minister? He was the Prime Minister for about 7 years, from 2004 to 2011. And who was the Prime Minister after Mr. Zapatero? Mr. Rajoy, Mariano Rajoy was the Prime Minister after Mr. Zapatero. How long was he? Who? Mr. Zapatero. How long was he the Prime Minister? No, excuse me, Mr. Rajoy. Oh, you're trying my patience. Okay, Mr. Rajoy was the prime minister for 7 years, right? 7 years? 6 years? From 2011 to 2018 or 19. Ya perdido la cuenta. Yes. And who is the prime minister now? The prime minister now is Mr. Sanchez. Okay. Okay. Was he the prime minister last year? Yes, he was. Was he the prime minister all year? I don't remember. I don't think so. But I don't remember. Con tantos elecciones, he perdido la cuenta. I don't remember anymore. Well, was he the prime minister 10 years ago? No, he wasn't. Does he speak English? Yes, he does. Yes, he does. See you tomorrow.